this report is not an indictment on every man and woman that has the privilege of wearing this uniform, this patch, and this badge. This report is, however, an indictment of those bad behaviors by a relatively small number of police officers over many, many years. We know that our citizens are outraged at some of the details included in this report, and they should be. Citizens can't be expected to respect an agency if the trust of that agency is breached.
While there are plenty of people who, when the city of Baltimore comes up in conversation, will think about places such as the Inner Harbor and its great restaurants, a game at Camden Yards where it makes no difference if you're an Orioles fan because the ballpark itself is simply magnificent. Not too far from the birthplace of Babe Ruth and the museum that celebrates his life, the Maryland Zoo remains one of the truly spectacular places to take in nature, and the National Aquarium provides an eye-opening experience for those of all ages. Then there is the other side of this city, replete with eye-opening statistics and facts about one of the more crime-ridden places in America. 2011 saw a year where homicide numbers fell in Baltimore. Elders there were trying to convince themselves they had turned the corner. They did, but that turn was smack dab back into another reminder of what Baltimore had become. Spikes upward in murder for both 2012 and 2013, and another dangerous upward trend last year in the wake of Freddie Gray's death in the back of a police transport van, leading not only the city but the Justice Department to get involved and seek ways to, at the very least, slow down the trail of blood on streets not far from those popular tourist landmarks. The bills all came due today when the government made their findings public. And while making certain to point out what they found is not an indictment of those police officers who seek to do their job with honor and integrity, they were forced to lay bare the truth about Baltimore. It's a clarion call to other cities and towns across America that this nation must take immediate action to get cops and citizens on the same page. The consequences are too terrible to even consider. Have cops been allowed to become more dangerous than trustworthy, or have criminals been given far too many chances to ply their wares because of politically correct policing? Your comments are welcome at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Our guest, president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, a former assistant director at the Criminal Investigative Division of the FBI, more than 30 years of law enforcement experience. Welcome, Ron Hosko, back to the Hardline. Ron, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Let's see if we can get to work here. What we heard from the law enforcement individuals, the police in charge in Baltimore, the police chief himself, they talked about things that have been going on for many, many years. Ron, that's where people need to start. Why is something like this, unconstitutional practices, stops, searches, arrests of African Americans, people with mental health disabilities being basically busted for no reason? How is this allowed to go on for many, many years?
Yeah, to me, it's one of the more disturbing underlying themes of the report is that there were many indicators of problems in Baltimore. Those things that should start to gather the attention of the city's administration, potentially the state administration, potentially the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division's attention. And those things didn't grab their attention sufficiently. And what we end up with is a tragedy, pain and suffering in the streets of Baltimore a year ago in the wake of Freddie Gray's death, and now this report that certainly reads like an indictment of the police department, and that's unfortunate. The
Baltimore mayor, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, says this city is committed to reforming. This is exactly what we knew we were going to hear. It's the right thing to say. Here's what she said.
But our efforts have started the necessary process of change and reform in Baltimore. They reaffirm the city's commitment to a police department that both protects our citizens as well as respects their rights.
Ron, reaffirmed. Here we go. There's that word again, as if it's happened before. We've affirmed before that we needed to do this. And you also talked about something. You said it didn't grab their attention sufficiently. What happened? Ron, to be very honest here, because this is something that's built on anger, what does it take? How many bodies do you need in a city? And again, let's remember, Ron, we're not talking about all cops. We're talking about the bullet heads, as I call them, the ones who use the badge for their own purposes, the rotten eggs in this basket here. How do you grab their attention sufficiently? How many bodies is it going to take before somebody does something?
Well, that's exactly the point, Ed. How much attention-grabbing headlines does it take to get the attention of a mayor that's 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, 1,500 miles away? Because these similar events are percolating in other cities in America.
Let's just say that,
Right.
Ron. I got to stop you there. When you talk about the mayor, let's point this very clearly here. The fact that we're reaffirming is this mayor didn't do her job. The mayors before her didn't do their job. The police chiefs didn't do their job. The people in charge of the cities didn't do their job. This isn't one person at one time. This is systemic that goes back decades.
But that's right. If you look at the details of this report, the report talks about widespread understaffing of the Baltimore Police Department, the underutilization, underapplication of resources. So they don't have the technology, they don't have the analytic capability to store, to review, probably not the right people to look at data and say, here's what we're concluding. Look at the state's attorney's office. Not only were police supervisors dropping thousands of charges against arrested citizens, so was the state's attorney's office. So where was the collective saying, time out, we need to hit the reset button, we're doing something wrong, we're disenfranchising people, we're criminalizing activity that we could treat differently, we're creating waves of people who now we're treating as criminals because of they've been intaken into the system and treated as criminals. We are dividing the police from the community. Who among them said, stop, we're doing something wrong? It's not just a
Nobody.
culture in the police department. It's much more widespread than that.
Let me get to something here, though, because let's look at the other side of the coin. There are criminals out there. There are bad guys and bad gals out there who want to do harm to others. The whole issue here then comes down to training. I hear this over and over again. We need to train our officers. Ron, how then do we start? What is that training then? Because we got to get the bad guys, the crooks, the criminals, we got to get the scum off the street in the first place. But cops then are hit every single day with the fact they're saying, well, we need to do this. We need to do this and this and this, because if we don't do these things, then we can't find out who the criminals are. Wait a minute, then we're going to train you to do things differently. Ron, please try and give us an idea here of what that training is so that we can at least bring some civil order to a city and get to the real bad guys.
And that is a critical piece of it. If we are not taking police officers off the streets and putting them in a learning environment where they're listening to success stories, where positive results have happened with community engagement, where we have enough police to go out into the community and do community policing, officer-friendly type work. If we don't have the internal resources, I can't take cops out of patrol cars and put them in a classroom.
Money.
I can't take them out of patrol cars and put them on the streets making friends and influencing people.
You're talking about money, Ron. Now, that's what I hear. Money, yes?
Absolutely. This is an investment in identifying the right cops that we want to hire, that we bring into our organization. We recruit the right people. We train them the right way. We're training them across their career, not once in a police academy, and then your next training is on the street, and that's all the training that you get. Legal training in the current state of the art in what the Supreme Court is saying, what the Maryland Supreme Court is saying about constitutional searches and about the use of force and confessions, all of those things that cops need to know to be the best cop they can be. If I don't have enough cops, what do we have? We have them in patrol cars crisscrossing the street, going from emergency call to emergency call. That is going on in other cities in America today.
But we also have to make sure, I'm going to make this point very clear, we have to make sure that these cops are getting the crooks, the criminals. We can't take everything away from them. We cannot handcuff law enforcement. We've still got to give them the opportunity to go out and find these people and get them off the streets.
Absolutely right. We have to have cops, particularly in a place like Baltimore, where you have these other aspects of our society that are breaking down, right? The family has broken down. Education has broken down. Financial opportunity has broken down. And so, as Sheriff Brown said in Dallas, or Chief Brown said in Dallas just a few weeks ago, we expect too much of the cops. If we don't resource them appropriately, this sort of breakdown is going to happen again. And my fear is that other mayors aren't reading this report, other police chiefs aren't reading this report and taking action today rather than waiting for the fires to start to burn in their city. If this is either pay me now or pay me later, my advice is invest in your police department today. build that infrastructure, build that trust and that culture today, so you don't pay the piper tomorrow. That's what's going to happen in Baltimore now.
And citizens groups need to invest themselves in doing their parts as well, helping to clean up communities. I only got about 30 seconds left. The National Fraternal Order of Police, they claim that the Hillary Clinton campaign refused to fill out a questionnaire to back them. That's 335,000 members. They say that the Clinton campaign doesn't want to get behind them and has basically snubbed them. About 30 seconds. Did she? Was this just a mistake, a gaffe? What happened here?
Well, based on what we've seen with her alignment with Al Sharpton, with Black Lives Matter meetings, I think she has chosen sides. I don't know that this is a gaffe. I think it's a terrible mistake if it's the side she's lining up on, because what these police officers do stand for is law and order. They want to engage in productive community relations.
Bad mistake.
Hillary Clinton should be on their side as well.
Bad mistake. She should be begging for their backing. Ron Hosko, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. This special program reminder for our DirecTV viewers, Newsmax TV shows are moving to Channel 366 effective the end of this week. We're already airing The Hardline, all the Newsmax programs on JLTV on DirecTV 366. Go there now, make the switch. DirecTV Channel 366 for all your favorite Newsmax programs. We're there right now. You need to be there as well. On deck, the first indication we have about what happens to a politician who identifies with Donald Trump in a Republican primary of all things. Plus, why are so many people still running from Donald Trump? Republicans, that is. Get your phone calls up at 1-877-NEWSMAX. We're back right after this.